Hey, welcome everyone. This is Chuck Hogan with Your Best Life, and welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV's channel 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure that you rate and leave a comment. The app is completely free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, as well as Roku sticks, and all of the smart TVs 2016 and forward. Well, I know you hear me say this quite often, but I'm going to say it again. You are in for a freaking treat today. So tonight we have a friend and someone who has just impressed the heck out of me. And the reason why I call her friend, and I don't use this term lightly, is that there's a connection and synergy with people. And sometimes when the energy's just right, you're like, "What? I like this person." Not only do I enjoy the conversations that we've had, but her skill set is beyond reproach. Theresa Depasquale is one of those folks that when you meet her, you go, okay, number one, she's for real. Number two, she's got it going on. Like intelligence quotient off the charts, but her EQ outmatches her IQ. Where her expertise is not just in delivering love, light, and happiness to people. She's a mom, she's an entrepreneur, she's a businesswoman, but even more so than that, she is a social media expert. Yeah, that's right. You heard it right here. This woman not only walks the walk, she talks it as well and can explain to us why your story is not yours to keep. In fact, she's going to share with us tonight in just a minute what drove her to actually pursue this line of work and what it means to her in this day and age, because she's not all about the money, y'all. So without further ado, Theresa, please welcome and thank you for being on tonight. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's so good to see you too. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So, in your journey as you started into the whole world of social media, because for some people it's a very nebulous place and they're trying to figure out
Yeah.
what does this even mean? You know, like all this Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch. I mean, I go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Where did you start? Because I mean, that's the crazy part, right? We all came from someplace. Where did you start?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a great question. I actually didn't start in social media. My entrepreneurial journey started when I was 24 years old. I decided that I had just had my son. He was a few months old. And I tried the stay-at-home mom thing. And God bless stay-at-home moms, because it is the hardest job on the planet. And I just need to use my brain. So I was like, I don't want to necessarily leave my baby with someone. So what can I do that I can work with my baby? And I'm like, be an entrepreneur. So I ended up opening a health club in Tampa Bay. And I was 24 years old, new mom, obviously really inexperienced as an entrepreneur, but we ended up doing really, really well our first year and ended up making a profit. And being a very young, naive entrepreneur, I was like, let's open another one. So we opened up another one and we were doing really well. But it was really challenging being a new mom. I ended up getting pregnant, lost a baby, and then got pregnant again, had my daughter throughout this like 5-year journey that I had with these health clubs. It was challenging because at the time I was still fairly new to my marriage and we were figuring out that whole thing and how to be parents. And he was an old school Italian. So, you know, he had different expectations that I had. And so there was a lot of stress on that side of my life. And then I had a business partner who didn't think that I worked enough. And so it was kind of like, do you ever feel like you're in those situations where like you're getting quartered because it's like you can't win? It's like this person thinks over here and then the opposite over here. And I was like just so stressed out and I ended up actually getting really sick. And right around this time, this was in, first the 2008 recession hit. So that was challenging because we were doing really well in business until that hit. So we were a high-end boutique membership gym. And let me tell you that is one of the first things to go when people don't have money. So we made it through that, but I ended up just from the stress of all the things, getting really, really ill. Mm-hmm. And it was basically at a point where my doctor was like, you got to do something because if you don't, something serious is going to happen. So I ended up closing one gym, selling parts of the other one, bankrupt the whole business. Thought it was the end of my life. Thought my life was over. It was like the worst, year of my life. And I didn't really know what to do. And at that time, Instagram had just come out. It was like, I remember just trying to figure out how to use the app. And I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. And I was just like, oh, this looks cool. And I had some free time because I was like kind of in this period where I had closed the gyms and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And I was like, you know what? One thing I've never done is fitness competitions because it scared the living crap out of me to be up there on a stage in bikini in front of people. And so I was like, you know what? If I'm scared of it, probably means I should go do it. So I was like, I'm going to use this time and I'm going to go do some fitness shows. So I went and did fitness shows and ended up winning my pro card. And as I was doing those fitness shows, I had just started documenting that kind of journey of like getting ready for these fitness shows and what I'm doing with fitness. And like, it was just kind of like fun. I wasn't necessarily even doing anything, but I caught on really quickly that there was like a business there. So I ended up I made this ebook. I'll never forget. It was a Bikini Mom Secrets ebook. And I sold it and I made like $5,000 my first day. And I was like, holy cow, there's like a business on Instagram. And I created online training. I would like to say I'm not the first person probably, but I think I was one of the first people that created figuring out how to do online training, fitness training. This was back in like 2012.
Good for you.
Nobody knew how to do it. We were using Google Drive and like, we didn't have software. So I built a huge online fitness business. I ended up having almost 100 girls that I was coaching for competitive fitness shows. Mm-hmm.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And then through my social media, I caught on really quickly to how it worked. And I actually was building my personal brand on social media, leveraging it for this fitness business, but also I simultaneously grew marketing pages that I would sell marketing at the same time. So I was able to leverage that to also grow my personal brand, but to make money and to monetize it. And so I was doing a lot of stuff on Instagram, and I kind of did some consulting on the side, but really it was just to grow my fitness business. I ended up doing all the personal brand things. I wrote a book. I developed an app. I had a very, very large fitness business. And it wasn't until probably, I think about 4.5 years ago, I ended up joining a mastermind because I was like, you know what? I do organic social media marketing. So if anyone on here doesn't know what that means, it basically means you're not paying to grow. You're not doing ads and you're not boosting posts. You're just making really good content and people are sharing it and they're telling their friends to follow you and you're hitting the explore pages. And so I didn't know anything about online marketing. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to have a serious business, I need to like put my big girl pants on and go learn this whole like online marketing world. So I ended up joining, I think you know JJ's mastermind. And when I was in there, JJ was actually, I started consulting for everybody and they're like with all this personal branding and social media. And she's like, what are you doing? She's like, you should do that, not this. I was like, okay. So I was 36 years old. I sold my fitness business and started an entirely new career at 36. Yeah, that was crazy because I gave up all my income and just started totally from zero scratch.
Can I ask you something real quick? Because this is so interesting and y'all can see how energetic she is. This is one of those things I was telling you about. And so, no, and I love it. Theresa, it's beautiful. So here's a question. When you were going through and developing those business models, again, these first-time business models, how did that make you feel? How did that because I'm sure there's some trepidation in there.
You know what's crazy? There is, because when you go from making a salary and, when you're used to making a certain amount of money, it's hard to go to nothing.
Yes.
And even if you have a savings, it's still scary because how long can you save? You know what I mean? Like you want to always be bringing in money. You can't just live off savings forever. So it's like, there's definitely trepidation, but I'm a true entrepreneur. So I love challenges. So for me, it like lit me up because I'm like, this is like, it's scary as heck, but it's like fun, So part of me was like, okay, how am I going to do this? And part of me was like, let's do it. So I took my first person for free. You got to get results. So I was like taking people for free, trying to get results. Then I would charge a little bit of money, get some more results. Then I would like increase. So it was a slow build. And then when I started getting like serious results, I attracted serious clients and then it like kind of grew from there. And so that's how I ended up where I am today. Yeah.
Amazing. What gave you the tenacity to have this belief system? Because, oftentimes there's this default mechanism in some people's head. They go, oh, I can't comfortably live with this uncertainty. Like I'm at the point now where it's like, time out, sister. We got to take a break here.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, like I said, I really thrive off of the uncertainty and the challenge because it makes me, it's like, what is the saying? If you want to take the island, you have to burn the boats.
Yeah.
So for me, like I do really well when my ass is to the fire. Sorry if I can't curse on here. So it puts me in like, okay, do or die, like this has to work. So I go all in on it. I don't know that not everyone's like that. Some people crumble like that, but that's just my mindset is like, if there's no plan B, how do we make plan A work? And so
that's important because commitment is everything. And oftentimes when people are, so if you're listening at home and you're trying to figure out what's the difference between someone who is going to go out and make it happen, it's called massive action.
Yes. Yeah.
Living in hopium isn't going to get you anything. And it's such an addictive drug. hoping that someone is going to give you opportunity, hoping someone that's going to give you an option. And it's like, well, here's the truth. You have options and compelling future all around you. You just have to be aware and put yourself in a state, in a space that's going to allow you to do that. As you can see, Theresa has this optimism, but she also has something which is really important and we're going to chat about right now, and that is conviction. Conviction is the difference. I know a lot of people make a decision and then they'll fall out of a decision.
Yeah.
But they're not convicted. Where do you find inspiration from that allows you to stay? Because again, belief is one part of it, but there's another side to you where I have a feeling if people start pushing back, you're like, do you know who you're talking to?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can tell you I was a competitive gymnast for a lot of my life, and I was an athlete for a lot of my life. So I think I just have that competitive, like, I don't want to fail. I want to, it's like probably, I don't know if you call it a chip on my shoulder, not in a negative way, but it pushes me in a positive direction. I leverage it for positive momentum.
Sure. Well, as gymnasts and people who work with their own body weight, yes, I'm very familiar.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's an individualized sport that's also a team sport. And so it has a very different metrics. It's kind of like the same as martial arts. One of the things that attracted me to that
Yeah.
part of my life as well. You stand on your own merit. And it has a lot to do with control, perceived discipline, and perceived control. Because you're like, when you engage yourself, if it's a 4X, pommel, beam, whatever the case might be, it's like going, okay, and you're launching yourself on a vault.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, it's controlled uncertainty.
That's actually a brilliant way to put it, because it's ordinary things done consistently that give you those metrics to know that if I move my body, twist my body, tuck my shoulder, where I drop my head, and even the way that you're approaching, like the vault. So the springboard, it's like, okay, this makes a big difference. Speed,
oh, yeah.
Control. And some people, like, they don't run that fast.
Conviction.
Well,
have you ever gone to tumble and then you decide in the middle of the tumble, like, I'm not going to do it? It doesn't end up well.
It doesn't. And there's certain things outside of your control, like when a horizontal bar breaks. You're doing giant swings to facilitate a sukahara. So it's like, this was not a good look. This did not feel good. And when I hit the padded wall, it was even more uncomfortable. So love this, because this is bringing some things together where, what would you say to someone if they were going, okay, look it, Theresa, you got it going on. You're a brash, bright individual. You're bold and dynamic. You have this IQ and EQ. What do you say to someone who's questioning, how do I get started? Like, how do I even start to get my presence out there? And you alluded to it when you said, I started sharing my journey. That was brilliant, because I don't know that this needs to be rocket science, but I'm going to defer to the professional in the room, since I don't even play one on television. So
yeah, I mean, I think this is what I always go back to is, like, social media, people want to connect with other people, right? And think about Netflix, Apple TV, Hulu, all these streaming apps, right? It's like, people, like, reality TV is huge because people want to watch and they want to see what's going on in other people's lives. So a lot of, like, clients that I work with are like, I don't know, I don't think people want to know about me. No, they absolutely do. People want to know what you're doing. They want to be part of your journey. It's, some of them live vicariously through you, or you're inspiring them, you don't even know it. And so it's like, a lot of people are scared to put their message out there, but really that's exactly why people are on social media, is to be social and to connect with other humans. So I would absolutely say, like, if you are contemplating doing that, but you never know who you're going to inspire. I forget sometimes, like, when I do a lot of inspirational stuff, because that's my natural state. And I get messages. I'll give you an example. I also recently, I'm in the process of almost finalizing a divorce. And I ended up, I'm dating a woman now. And I just came out and put that on social media. And I got so many messages from people that were like, wow, I cannot believe you just shared that. Like, you're so inspirational. I've been thinking about, like, I've been in this terrible relationship and I haven't had the courage, and, like, you inspire me of how you're handling it, because we are very amicable and we're co-parenting extremely well. That's our number one priority, is beautifully co-parenting. But for me being able to share that journey, I got so many messages, people saying like, thank you so much for sharing. I haven't known what to do. And like, I've been so scared and like, I didn't want to say anything. And like, you just don't know who you're impacting. You have no idea.
Well, conviction, again, it comes back to
Mhm.
when you believe in who you are. And self-judgment is one of the most challenging paradoxes that people are dealing with in today's day and age, because
Yeah.
there's so much measurement that's going on. And I'll put it a different way. It's when we contrast and we compare to others by comparison to just measuring ourselves and the progress and the standards that we keep. And they're two entirely different measurement systems. One might as well be SAE, standard. The other one might as well be metric. It's still the same temperature outside, but we have two different ways of
Yeah.
distinguishing what that looks like. And so congratulations, because love is love. I mean, irrespective of gender.
Yeah, that's my most recent one, but it's just interesting because I've just never been afraid to put it out there. And now I've done it so long that I don't even think twice. You know, it's kind of like riding a bike. As you get comfortable doing it, you don't even think about it anymore. I'm sure after you've done a couple TV shows, you just, you know what I mean? It's not like you're nervous to do it anymore. So I definitely encourage people to just push through the uncomfortableness and see the response you get. And I think the first time you get a really good message or two, it's like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. I remembered why I'm doing it.
It's encouraging because where focus goes, energy flows. And so when we start to understand that we get to choose the narrative, we can go ahead and buy into someone else's hype or judgment or indiscretion, or we can choose to place our focus on healthy environments that actually nurture, our value system as well. And opinions, they're out there and there's a plethora of them, and some are much more endearing and engaging and others not so much.
Yeah.
And at least we get to choose where our happiness center is. It's like, are you living in your head where everything is judgmental, or are we actually taking the time to understand self and being present and going, I'm going to enjoy this journey for as long as I can stay in this bad boy? And that feels so much more compelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was just reading the other day that they say when you start comparison, that's like one of the biggest signs you're operating from your ego. And
Yes.
it's been a really good reality check for me that I'm like, wow, when I catch myself immediately, I'm like, boom, what is either number one, my goals are not big enough. I'm not busy enough focusing on something that I need to be focusing on. That's like my number one sign when I start doing that. Or number two, I'm like, okay, I need to go back and connect with myself, with source, God, whatever you call it. But yeah, that's like a very big sign for me that I can tell when I start, because everyone does it. We're human. We're at a human experience, right? It doesn't matter who it is. We all are going to have those moments at times where you're insecure, you might feel jealous, or you're comparing, or right, having all these emotions. But it's more about like immediately recognizing it and being, okay, why am I doing this? Obviously, I don't have a purpose that's, driving me to be able to put my attention over here, right? That's what I'm talking about, like a goal. That's because I know for me personally, I don't know about you, when I have something big I'm working on, I'm like tunnel vision. I'm not paying attention to anybody else. Everything is like, hater blockers on, blinders. And so it's when I'm not doing that I notice that my mind's wandering around.
I find the same thing. I've gotten into the habit now of attaching to any outcomes, the emotions and feelings that I need to feel most often. And so I started noticing that when that's where my focus went,
Yeah.
now my IQ and EQ were actually matched. So they've actually done scientific experiments on this, where when you do like heart mapping or heart breathing, that the sinus rhythm and the EKG and the EEG actually go into sinus rhythm together. And it's beautiful because now it's a full body experience. And these are where the best decisions are made as well, because you're not just living in your head, you're actually living in your full body, mind, and spirit.
You're synchronized.
You are. And it's oftentimes it comes from slowing down. And
Yeah.
that's the other part too. I started noticing that when things were helter-skelter, that it can actually start to create some awkwardness. And where I just had a conversation with a client earlier today, and we were talking about riding motorcycles. And he goes, well, what's your favorite part about riding motorcycles? I said, it was the detours. He goes, what? He goes, no, mate. He's from Great Britain. He goes, no, mate. He goes, no, you got to know what's coming up. And I said, no. When you slow down, you get to have a different experience.
Totally.
And enjoy it in a different way. And he goes, oh, said, because here's where most people get in accidents on motorcycles. They think they know what's coming up.
Right.
And wherever you're looking is wherever you're going to steer the bike. And I said, huh.
Interesting.
So that's the time to throttle up, or maybe let off on the throttle a little bit. And he goes, I never looked at it that way. And I said, I use the same ideology in business and in relationships because I don't believe in balance. And this is something I wanted to ask you about. I'm a proponent of harmony. I've never, heard of anyone going, oh, 5-part balance. No, I've heard of 5-part harmony.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, so what is it about that? I said, it's the synchronicity of how the blending of ecologies comes together. And this is where I believe social media takes us, because you brought up something, and I'm going to go back to this real quick, which was when you are connecting, and one of the largest distinctions that we have as human beings is love and connection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's part of the essential needs, and then what we'll call the 6 human needs. The essential needs are air, water, food, shelter, love, and connection.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Human needs are certainty, uncertainty, significance, love and connection, growth and contribution, the last two being spiritual. And I go, the blending of ecologies is like, ooh, I have things that are innately responsible for me being alive and well. And then I have these that are more elected, if you will, that create value and fulfillment in my life.
Yeah.
So when you said that, it's like, isn't this like really the kind of precipice of social media? Is that it's this social connecting of people together?
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction, because let's face it, that there is negative crap on social media. But the way that I really encourage people to use it is only follow people that are going to inspire you, motivate you, teach you something positive, help you grow in a good direction, or like your friends and family that you really love connecting with. You're not obligated to follow anybody that you don't want to follow. So for me, like, my feed is people of things that I want to see. I don't follow stressful news stations and conspiracy people. And it doesn't matter what you believe. I'm not saying all conspiracies are wrong, because they're not. But it's just, I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. And so I think social media can be a really powerful tool for good if you use it the correct way. And so I know for me, I try to be more of a producer on social media. Obviously, I have a social media agency, so I work with really amazing clients that are doing really good work in the world. Doctors that are healing people, motivational speakers, business experts that are helping people create generational wealth, like really cool people. So like, I know that I'm doing good because I'm putting good stuff out. I'm not working with, shady, weird people. So it's really just like, how are you using it? I think it's a very powerful tool for connection. I think about Facebook. I wouldn't see my family half the time if we didn't have Facebook or FaceTime. Like, I literally would not. I'm so grateful for Facebook because that's how I keep up with my family. So,
and that's a great distinction as well.
Yeah.
Part of this too is, and I believe this to my core, is because you keep very high standards. So morally, ethically, engagement wise, and how you're utilizing. So you're not letting the platform or the format use you.
Nope.
You are influencing and if you want to call it, crafting and managing the message so that you're deliberate. And this is so important. People, there's this propensity right now for folks to get stuck in mediocrity. And they're like going, I'm okay. I'm getting by. This is all right. And I go, okay, what's the next level up from just okay? They go, well, better. I go, well, that's a start.
Yeah.
Great. They go, oh, I wouldn't go great. And I go, well, what does great mean to you? Because ultimately, there's 3 questions we get to ask ourselves. And I'd love to know how this manifests for you. I have a belief system, and that is, number 1, ask yourself how you're feeling. Because that's the quality of your life. It's a direct proportion to how you feel. You can have all the money in the bank, but if you feel challenged or you don't feel loved or valued. Second question is to that is, what does this mean? What does it really mean to you? And then the last one is, and this is going to sound really silly, but it's so powerful. How do you need to feel instead? Because at the end of the day, if you're reading into someone else's garbage or someone else's manifestation, and which I actually call social bullying, there are people who just don't want to see other people succeed. There are some people who will be, jealous of your appearance or your likes or your follows or even your messaging. They don't know you, but they're judging you. And I go, what would you say to folks? Because I'm sure you get it from both sides and in the middle. What would you say to people that are going, okay, but it's easy for you to talk about, Theresa, because you've got all this going on? And it's like, it wasn't handed to you. So
No.
what would you say? Yeah, no, there's always a bit of like, really, people? Like, that's where your mind goes? What would you say to someone who's trying to figure this out right now? Like,
Yeah, I think, it all comes back to I have compassion for those people
mhm,
because for me, when I see people acting that way online, it tells me that they are going through something so horrible or their life is that terrible that they feel the need to go and be toxic and terrible to other people. And that's sad. Like that makes me real. I get sad for people.
yes,
So I just think if you look at it, like we all know, right? It's like they say that other people's, behaviors, it's not you, it's usually their own issues.
yes,
It's the same thing with people on social media. And so sometimes it hurt. I'm not going to say I have clients that sometimes can't go on and look at they're like, you guys look, because they get really impacted by the comments. But really, if you think about it, why would people do that? They're really obviously hurting inside. They're really hurting to be able to lash out like that. And so,
and it goes back to what you just said. And there's no such thing as a tool that's good or bad. It's that it's universal and it's there. So I go, are they that desperate for connection
yeah,
that they'll manifest in putting something out there for shock value,
yeah,
that controversy sells more, or it's like, oh, that kind of hyperbole or that hype.
yeah.
And but do they even really believe it themselves?
Some,
It,
some people do, and that's the challenging part. Is that's where, as consumers, we have to really be deliberate in who we're following and the messages we're listening to, and do our due diligence. Like if it comes to health information or wealth information or whatever it is, something with your children, like you can learn from people on social media, but always go do your due diligence because there are a lot of people out there just putting out crazy stuff.
there are, there
Yeah,
are,
it's
and,
not
and
related, but
no filter. There's no filter. So be an active participant in your own salvation.
totally. But to your point, I do think there are some people, unfortunately, who use it to get that validation.
Mm.
And as someone, I'll be honest with you, when I was younger, I did that. I did it because I didn't do the inner work when I was in my early 20s. I think the younger generation has so much advantage over us because I
Oh,
did not start doing this work until my 30s. Like I know these kids that are 20s going to Joe Dispenza and like I'm like, what, where would I be if I started this in my 20s? What the heck? Like I had to go through it on my own. And I know what that feels like. And it doesn't give you validation. It's hollow and empty. Like it really is. The only validation that you can do is like validating yourself. And that takes inner work.
the hype in the moment is exactly that. It's hype.
Mhm.
And it's a shame we start to find that as people, hopefully they're growing, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And
Yeah.
that's a kind of a, I'll say, a very crass way of putting it, but it's true. That's a universal law of life. So when we start to see people who are lashing out, or I'll say, they have a different narrative, what do you find for yourself
Hmm.
allows you to recenter, like when you start to read things? Because I love what you said about this, and that is, I just basically, what you said is, I just changed the channel. If it's something that's not serving me, I'm in control of the clicker. I
Hmm.
get to pick. But with these algorithms that are out now, and
Yeah.
they may not be on social media very much, so anything that they see all of a sudden starts feeding them other things,
Yeah.
and it's like, ruh-roh.
It is true. The more you engage with a specific type of content, the more the algorithm is going to show it to you. So that does happen, but it doesn't mean you can't change it. I can tell you, personally, it's very easy to unfollow people that you don't know.
Mm.
What's challenging is to unfollow people that are part of your family
Oh,
or close circle. So that was, I think, the hardest part for me to navigate because as I started climbing the ranks of entrepreneurship and achieving a little bit more success and a little bit more success, it's interesting because, like, to your point, not everyone does want to see you do well. And sometimes it's people closest to you, which is really sad because what I've learned is I think that you growing makes them realize that they're stuck. And so they don't like that. And so they lash out at you. And so that's been the only thing that was really challenging for me. And so I just, there's ways on social media you can like, you can mute accounts. You don't have to see them without unfollowing. So there's like little ways that you can get around it. But as far as anybody else, if it's like a random person, I unfollow. I'm the queen of unfollowing. If it's not giving me, and not entertaining me in a good way, educating me, inspiring me, or motivating me to be better, I'm out.
I'm with you. There's a saying from Eckhart Tolle that is, tend the weeds to the garden of your mind. And we are so open right now to so many influences
Yeah.
and these little devices that are carried around everywhere. As I reminded my wife today, I was like, it's called a smartphone. And then I started looking at things and I was like going, oh, but is it? Because now they're even calling them smart devices. They're
Yeah.
actually changing the narrative around these because how they're being used primarily isn't as a phone anymore.
Yeah.
It's for
Email. Yeah.
there's more computing power in this than what sent the man to the moon, and it's like going, okay.
Mhm.
So I would love to know from you, Theresa, what's some of the most powerful things that you've experienced with folks when they start to share their true self? And is there any danger when they're doing this online um, to exposure from people? Because this is, again, it's kind of like what you said. After you've done a show or two, after you've done competition or two, after you've done some platforms or two relative to projects with clients,
Yeah.
you have a different level of awareness.
Mhm.
So what would you say to someone that going, oh, I don't want people knowing about me?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a way to share your story and share about yourself without putting every intimate detail out there. I think we all know the people that overshare everything, and it's kind of like we always make a joke. It's like the relationship, the couple that puts every detail and everything they break up, and then they stop posting. And we're like, but we need closure. We need closure. What happened to the relationship? Because they share every detail of it. You
Yes.
don't need to be that person. It's like, it's just more about sharing your story in an authentic way that you feel comfortable with. I will tell you, there's going to be people that don't like your story, and that's okay. Part of what we do on social media, obviously I work with entrepreneurs and experts who want to kind of leverage it for their business. But part of what we do is repelling the people that aren't meant to work with us. Not everyone's going to be your person, and that's okay. You have to get used to that. You don't want those people on your page. Why would you want someone that doesn't believe in what you're doing, appreciate you, support you, or say, I'm saying, why would you let them get off your page? It's fine. So you don't, I think it's just having that mindset of like, not everyone's going to like you. And especially in business, if you've read Seth Godin's Purple Cow,
Okay.
it's great. You can't be vanilla. If you're vanilla, you're going to be for nobody. So it's really like, just be yourself and your tribe will find you.
That's actually a great way of stating it. There's so many folks that are not self-aware.
Mhm.
And that's what we've been seeing a lot of right now. And then you'll find those like the 87-year-old grandmother who's tap dancing or she's
Yeah.
wearing flamboyant glasses and
I love that. Mhm.
and dating 23-year-olds, and you're like going, Nana? And so, but good for her. At the end of the day, there's this sensationalism side, and then there's this other side too, which is celebration.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that I've found so endearing about social media personally is seeing not even the success stories, but seeing the freedom that comes from being unadulteratedly yourself.
Totally.
It's such a beautiful expression. And in today's climate, it seems that politically things are so polarizing and there's a lot of judgment going on about people's identities, so they're like going awokeness and these different things.
Yeah.
What are you finding that social media is helping dissipate for people? Because at least in my model of the world, I see and I go, there's more variety out there than ever before,
Yeah.
than any other time on the history of the planet, as far as accessible information.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, it comes back to choosing what you're listening to. And I believe before I just got on this, we were in the sauna, we were listening to Wayne Dyer. And he talks about like, you get to choose basically what your reality is going to be. Is it going to be this terrible, negative, pessimistic, divisive world? Or is it going to be love and, like beauty? And like, you get to choose that. And whatever you choose and believe is what you're going to see.
That's it.
And it's what you're going to see on social media because you're going to gravitate towards that content. You're going to engage with that content. You're going to feed into it. And so I don't choose that. I'm sure it happens. And I'm not saying things, bad things don't happen, but like, I don't choose to buy into the divisiveness. I believe that most of us are way more alike than,
I
they
agree.
think. I think that there's just, and this could be a whole soapbox, but I just believe that we're mostly alike, most of us. Anyone I talk to, yes, we'll have some differences, but most of us want the same things.
It's funny that you said vanilla because I actually believe that most of us are vanilla, but some have a little bit of chocolate, some have some sprinkles, some have a little bit of whipped cream. So that's
Yeah.
like the basis for a sundae, right?
Yeah.
It's those 2 and 3 millimeter distinctions
Yeah.
that actually create uniqueness. So, as someone who wasn't born in the United States, I'm from Japan originally.
Oh, so cool.
It's a unique childhood having an Irish redhead blue-eyed dad and a 4'11.5" Japanese mom,
So
and
cool.
military kid, and my wife's from Nicaragua. And so when you start talking about, I'm married up big time. She knows it. She's watching this right now.
I love that.
Love you. And so the reason why I share this though is that I've seen so many changes in the dichotomy of what communication looks like. And
Mm.
social media is one of those scenarios where you can pick up your device, you can speak your truth,
Yep.
you can share who you are unapologetically. And I don't know if there's anything more First Amendment or I'll say clarifying in being able to voice oneself, but I completely agree with what you said, and that is we're all more alike than we are different.
I believe that. I absolutely believe it.
And yet the narrative is out there is that, oh, you're unique. There's not another one like you in the universe. And I said, well, that's true too, but your values and your belief systems are
Yeah.
shared.
That's what I mean is I think we want most of the same things,
We
right?
do.
We want to be healthy. We want to have a great, family. We want love. We
Right.
want these like, you were calling them, I guess, like the fundamental needs or, we want a lot of the same things. And yes, we don't necessarily agree on how to get there sometimes, but it's okay. And I think that that's what makes, us great is we're not all going to agree on everything all the time. It's diverse.
Which is
So I
awesome.
think that we're getting better now at having these tough conversations on social media. I'm seeing a different angle than it was a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, it was a very tumultuous place to be,
Oh,
and yeah, it was rough
quite
there.
divisive and quite divisive where people, if you had a different opinion, then you were judged as being wrong or
You're
an
canceled.
outlier.
You're canceled.
The cancel culture. I mean, I was going to ask you, and I kind of stayed away from this, but now I'm going to go there. And sorry,
Yeah.
imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
There's and with all due respect, I don't mean to coin or put people out there, but some of the first folks who were involved in social media, like the Jake Pauls of the world, who seem to reinvent themselves and come up. It's he was it was actually an influencer on social media for a long time, and had some engagements where he was doing some pretty what he thought were funny things, and ended up going to an area of Japan that is known for suicides, where people go to this forest, and then he was making fun of it, and it really was outlandish. Unfortunately, he's had several incidents like this, and now he's doing boxing with Floyd Mayweather and some other people, and he's actually quite the accomplished boxer,
Hmm.
which is great. But part of this is that there's this whole personification as to what someone's identity is. Like when you talked about before, in your early years, you notice that there was a different motive and driver for the using the tool of social media, and it was for a different level of engagement.
Hmm.
What would you say to those folks now who are finding their alter egos and almost having like an avatar that they're floating into? Because it seems very interesting. They seem like they believe themselves, but yet
Yeah.
there's a different energy around it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for so long, I can spot it immediately. So it's, I've been in this world. I've seen so much. I've worked with, I mean, just to be honest with you, even in the world of motivational speaking, I've seen it's just, you never know some people, not everyone, but it's interesting. I can tell you this, it comes to a point where you stop because it doesn't give you what you're trying. It doesn't give you what you need, which is your own validation. It
Yes,
doesn't.
that's
So
huge.
you can do it for a long time and then it becomes exhausting because like how long can you fake this persona and how long can you keep doing these things for like it's exhausting. And they'll get to a point where they have to figure something else out because it's not going to work.
It's the people that have staying power are authentic and real.
Totally.
And there's a reason why they've had very successful careers. and they continue to be beacons to people.
Yes.
The fake it till you make it ideology, I've never understood it. It doesn't feel good. And again, because I've been involved so heavily in behavioral sciences,
Yeah.
what they call life, enhancement for so
Mhm.
many decades now, that you start to your point, you see the patterns and you're like, going, wow, that didn't feel not
Yes.
even good, but didn't even feel right. It's like going, that was interesting.
Yeah.
And I'll have someone go, well, what do you mean by that? And I was like, well, their body language or the tonality of their voice, or I just didn't get a great feel from their energy.
Mhm.
And it saddens me to a degree to see people that are getting caught in the hype. And we're seeing this now where it's not just, it's almost being exacerbated because now live TV shows are being simulcast on social media simultaneously. So there's like this blending of ecologies. And we don't have Walter Cronkites anymore. We don't have people
Mhm.
who are being objective.
Right.
Um,
Journalists.
well, it's very polarizing, left or right or in between. And there are times when people go, "Oh, you're a conservative, or you're a liberal, or you're a progressive," and I go, "No, I'm a human being, and I'm just looking for a few good people. Like, I want to hang out with some like-minded, like-hearted souls."
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that we always have to say and see everything the same.
Right.
And there's this opportunity for us to your point, find the middle ground. And so for the young man or young woman who's trying to find their voice, what's maybe one or two things that you would give as suggestions where they can actually, and this is going to sound really maybe rudimentary, but I'm gonna beg your indulgence anyway. When they get inside of themselves, I see some people who they're so muted now that they have very little belief in self.
Mhm.
And so they choose just to clam up and close up, and they make themselves so small.
Yeah.
They don't believe that anyone else could find value in anything that they have to say or express.
Yeah, that's sad because that's not true. I see it all the time. I work with people that are experts, and it's the same thing that we talk about. I'll be like, let's share your journey of why you got into this. And they're like, nobody wants to know that. I'm like, they absolutely want to know why you started doing what you're doing. And every time that we share stories like that, it's some of the most engaging content that we make. Do you know why? Because you're connecting with other humans. They are relating to you through your story. You're either inspiring them or, educating them or whatever it is that you're doing, but you're like in a positive way. And so I think that's just so important. I feel like we're obligated to do that, if you want my opinion. I think that if we have something that we should be like our gift
Yeah.
is to be sharing whatever that gift is. It could be the littlest thing.
I was
So
told once that your story is not yours to keep, it's
yes.
yours to share. And that when you share, it shows that you care. And
Mhm.
that's how the world heals. It really is. We used to do it through writing. We used to do it through sharing stories, which is exactly what social media is. It's sharing different optics around reality.
Yeah. And through art, which also is social media. I mean, it's modern day art and stories is what we're doing.
It's beautiful. And the genre
Mhm.
that you get to elect to connect to people through.
Mhm.
And so if it's dance or music, I mean, I remember in the early years of all these different platforms, it was like, what's the new dance? And, how many generations of family could you have that are going to go ahead and attempt to do this dance? If it was the backpack kid or whatever the case might be, and you're seeing a 5-year-old, a 15-year-old, and then a 90-year-old, and you're like, going, oh, please, Nana, don't break a hip.
The
Uh,
back the backpack kid. That's the flossing.
yeah, exactly.
Hilarious.
And it's like it was like wildfire, and then all of a sudden it's different musicians. So
Yes.
we have a couple minutes left, and I'd love to ask you, because this is really poignant when it comes to social media now, and that is AI. Where's that taking us, in your opinion, relative to the influence that it has over the metrics, the optics, and how fast it's actually manifesting different levels of opportunity?
Yeah, I think AI is an incredible tool, and I think for business it's going to be great. But one thing that I will tell you is absolutely leverage it, for efficiency. We've been playing around with it at the agency, and what I'm afraid of is it's basically scraping the internet. It's
Yeah.
scraping the internet of everything everyone else has put out. So you need to be careful. Number one, nothing's checked or verified. And so I think, again, due diligence, like if you're going to use something, make sure that you're putting out correct info. I think that's so important because we can't just rely on AI because it's scraping from every website everywhere. And number two is I think that originality is still going to win because everyone's going to be using AI. And if you are authentic and making your own content, you're going to stand out from AI.
Without question. Without the human condition is, and so thank you for that. That you just reaffirmed what I've been feeling and what I've been extrapolating. I had someone who asked me the other day, go, well, what do you think? And I said, I believe that human beings have a very specific energy resonance, and that when you're living in your truth, you're resonating at the highest level of who you are, and that attracts other people who need that sphere of influence, that gravity, that, if you want to call it, energetic pull. And they go, wait, through video and through content? And I said, absolutely. Language is currency. Words have value. And when we get to elect and emote and share our true authenticity, people can feel that genuine, authentic connection. And it's one of the reasons why I love doing this show. It's I get to have the most brilliant people, and we get to share these ideas so that 200 million people throughout the world can have an opportunity to find some hope and compelling future and opportunity that, number one, you're not broken. Number two, when you have enough fire and heart in the belly, you can achieve anything. And last but not least, you get to exercise some belief and faith and appreciation in self. And that's something that I so admire about you, because you've said this 4 or 5 times during this entire exchange, and that is that you go back to gratitude. And it's like you slow down and go back to gratitude. You go after the big, hairy, audacious dream. You go after the big outcome and goal. You get myopic. And when things get hairy, you go back to the basics. What's that for you? What's that for you? What are the basics for you?
I am a very spiritual person. So for me, that is connecting back to source through meditation. So I'm a very big meditator. I'm an advanced meditator. That has been completely life-changing for me. If you are someone that is not meditating, I highly recommend starting. For me, just a brief thing about my experience. I started with like just the Insight Timer apps and it was okay, but I started doing some more of like the Joe Dispenza work and it's been really transformational in my life. And for me, coming back means just connecting back to source and realizing we are all one, we're all love, right? And so like a lot of these things that we think matter aren't as big of a deal as we think they are. In the big picture, they're really not.
Now, things and stuff are nice. What's necessary is what we need. And I find oftentimes so many people are chasing wants instead of fulfilling needs. But here's the truth. When you're fulfilling your needs, your wants shift. They change. They become actually more elevated. You see more possibility, which is so cool. So cool.
Yeah, it really is.
So grateful for you. I mean, seriously, like my mind is going all over the place. I'm like, going, oh, we could go in this direction, that direction. But at the end of the day, really what it comes down to is, and I don't mean to Cliff Notes Nike, but just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Get there. Listen, anyone who's ever run a marathon knows it starts with the first step.
It's so true. One thing I didn't say about when you were asking me about the uncertainty and how I go through trepidation, I found that if I just do, all of that dissipates, right? It's when I stop that I start getting anxious and I'm worried and I'm anxiety, I'm like fearful. And like, if I'm actively working, I wake up, I have a goal, I'm doing all this stuff, then I just, like you said, it's one foot in front of the other. I just do it and you get there eventually. You will absolutely get there if you do it.
And motion creates emotion. So
yeah, I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You are remarkable. Great show. I so appreciate your insights and distinctions. And just know, anytime you have anything to say, you let me know. We'd love to. This is amazing. I want to let
me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I want to let everyone know that this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check us out for all the news and all the programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you, Theresa.
Ciao.